Hello, BookTube. You're, looking good. Always a pleasure to see you. um, that little thing that happened once before recently happened again. I once again got a mail haul and dove upon it like a ravenous leopard, and only then realized too late that I'm not supposed to do that anymore. We're supposed to open the mail together. So I saved some packages. I regained my self-control and saved some packages. But some of them did get opened. So let's go through, just to calm you down, let's go through the packages that I opened first. And the first one is a little strange. It's a May release, and it's from Yale University Press. And you, by now, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know the rigmarole. I am an old friend of Yale University Press. I firmly believe that I have reviewed more Yale University Press books than anyone in the world. I've been reading them forever, even long before I reviewed them. And you know the routine, right? I see it in a catalog. I squeal about it at boring length on this channel. Then a few months later, I get a paperback advance copy, an ARC, a review copy, and I squeal about it again. And then I take that off, some dark sequestered nook. Oh wait, this is the dark sequestered nook, this room, this little monk cell full of books. I read it, and then eventually I get the finished copy. And we talk about it again. And this book is right up my alley. Certainly I would have done a commensurate amount of squealing, but I never saw it. I don't think I ever got an advance copy, and this finished copy is a naked hardcover. It has no dust jacket. It's just the art printed directly on the hardcover. So I don't really know what to make about any of that, but the book seems very intriguing. This is by Gabriel Paquette, and it is The European Seaborne Empires from the 30 Years' War to the Age of Revolutions. And it's just that. There's no dust jacket. So let me read you a little bit about it. Those of you who are history junkies like I am are going to really be interested already. In this thematic survey, the author focuses on the evolution of the Spanish, Portuguese, English, French, and Dutch overseas empires in the 17th and 18th centuries, drawing on recent advances in the field to examine their development from efficacious forms of governments to coercive violence. Beginning with a narrative overview of imperial expansion that incorporates recent critiques of older scholarly approaches. That's a very euphemistic way of putting things. But yes, you would pretty much have to do that. Try reading. There was a great old multi-volume history of the Dutch Empire at its peak from, probably 120, 130 years ago, sold like crazy. Some of you, if you've been to used bookstores, will have seen one or two volumes, or maybe all of them. Try reading it. It's beautiful to read, but oh my God, its ideas about imperialism and colonialism. Yeah, the zeitgeist has changed, at least in academic circles. So you couldn't possibly. You would have to do, what was it called again? Incorporate recent critiques of older scholarly approaches. You would have to do that. The author then analyzes the significance of these empires, including their political, economic, and social consequences and legacies. That sounds really, it doesn't sound, if you're a normal person, that's not going to sound really interesting, but to me, that sounds really interesting. I don't know why this is coming to me quite this way. Just bald and unannounced, unless it was announced and I'm just missing that. I don't know why. I think I would remember this. Then this next one, all right, this next one I'm going to need help from those of you in the UK, those of you in England. I'm going to need to know about this because I don't, and I have a feeling that I should. I have a feeling that I have missed something somehow. This is by Nick Fowler, and it's called My Virtuous Sister. For some reason it has a picture of Stevie Nicks on the cover, but I do like the cover. It's a tiny little thing, 15 minutes to read. And it gets to me from Upper Hand Press in Bexley, Ohio. Its release date is August the 1st. Let me tell you a little bit about this so you see what I mean. Among the post 9/11 rubble, amidst the post 9/11 rubble, her younger brother and soulmate. This is the person we're talking about here is 20-year-old Welsh emigre Petty Smout, S-M-O-U-T, a famous as a rock star at the end of the last millennium. That may be her. And amidst the post 9/11 rubble, her younger brother and soulmate Nate arrives in holiday season Manhattan in search of his sister. By piercing together the ragged index cards of the makeshift diary that she'd secreted in a Grand Central locker, Nate unfolds the story of previous New Year's Eve, 1999, and the brief fame his sister songstress Cordelia Petty Smout, who, after seducing too many in the music business only to lose her record deal and gain a heroin habit, finds salvation in the form of Alcoholics Anonymous, or rather its star member, Teddy D, at whose sober New Year's Eve party we encounter not a few surprises. While Petty and Nate manage geographically to escape their physically abusive bully of a father, Peace of Mind proves another thing entirely, a story of revenge and redemption, love and virtue. All of 100 pages long, soaking wet, with rocks in its pockets. And you might think, okay, it's just another little novella. Why do you need our help, especially in the UK? Let me tell you about Nick Fowler. I have a feeling that you're going to have heard about him when I have not. His first novel, A Thing or Two About Curtis and Camilla, was published in 2002 in North America by Pantheon Books. So 2002 would have put it well before my return to reviewing, well before I started reaching out to the Washington Post or the American Conservative, well before we started Open Letters Monthly. So I might have missed a book, especially if Pantheon, I might have missed it if it wasn't in my bookstore. It was a UK bestseller from Hodder and Stoughton, and received warm praise from critics in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the LA Times, and many others. Fowler is a professional musician who founded a band Tonto Tonto with drummer Greg Wattenberg, Michael Haar, and bassist Greg Smith, securing the group a recording contract with Victory Polygram. He advocates for women's and animal rights and for the improvement of English language and literature, and he's a graduate of Cornell University who lives in New York City. And although that's a very American-centric biography, it's that Hodder and Stoughton note that makes me wonder if maybe Nick Fowler had a bit more of a run, rose a bit higher to the level of popular recognition than he ever has in this country. I've never heard of him before. This is our author striking a dreamily thoughtful pose. And I'm wondering if maybe he strikes a note with any of you. Oh, well, it actually doesn't have to be the UK, because he was published in America. Do any of you know about this guy, where I do not? Because I have until August to get a bead on the landscape. Of course, I won't wait until August to read this thing. I'll read it during the course of this video. This next one I do not need any help identifying the author, and nor will you. This is one of the world's best-selling authors. This is the new James Patterson with David Ellis. His co-writer this time is David Ellis. It's called Unsolved. Let me see. Is this going to give me a plot description? The plot description, I admit, I read the plot description ahead of time, and I also dipped into the book just a bit, because Patterson is, and his co-writers, that phenomenon, not only do I highly approve of it, he's a very generous author. Notice the size of David Ellis's name on the cover. It doesn't have gold leaf. It's not embossed, but it's as big as James Patterson. And I guarantee you that reflects at least 50% of the writing work. And yet he's very generous with these people, helps them out. Also donates lots of time and money and books. So and tries to help in lots of other ways too. He's just a good guy. I get the impression, I've never met him, but I get the impression he's a good guy. And on top of that, these productions, however they're made, whether he writes the outline and then polishes the finished product, or is actually involved in the writing, they are one of my guilty pleasures. I have never read a book with James Patterson's name on the cover that I did not thoroughly enjoy. On one level. I mean, it's not Chekhov, but I've never read a book that was a James Patterson production that I didn't enjoy. And can you imagine, if we talk about necrofiction on this channel, Robert Parker has a new book out. That in addition to Buckskin, in addition to the new Spencer novel, there's also a Jesse Stone novel that's coming. That's 3 novels in 1 year for the guy who's been dead for a long time. And he's not the only one. Tom Clancy's Op Center has a new book. And it's a paperback release, but it's got his name, big as life, on the cover. And if that happens with those authors, imagine what's going to happen with James Patterson. We won't ever know for sure that he's dead. It'd be like Count Dracula. But I want to read you the description, because I dipped into this a little and really liked it. I think I'm going to consume this in one gulp. I usually do. A killer hides in plain sight in Washington, D.C. FBI analyst Emmy Dockery sees a pattern in the crime spree, but in her obsessive quest to solve it, will she compromise herself? FBI agent Emmy Dockery is absolutely relentless. She's young and driven, and her unique skill at seeing connections others miss has brought her an impressive string of arrests. And you remember, when I talk about thrillers, I really like that. I actually do prefer that angle in that gimmick to the, for instance, Nordic crime gimmick, where not only are our dogged detectives not possessed of any unique ability, but they are sub-average. They are less observant, less conscientious, less intelligent than the people around them who freely comment on that. I think it's probably supposed to be, at some meta level, it's probably supposed to be a vote of reassurance that, that our crime solvers don't need to be brilliant in order to protect us. But I much prefer the gimmick in which the main character has some kind of edge. Something. Even if it looks like a disability. Something that gives them an edge in looking at crime. Now, in this case, Emmy Dockery, it's just synergy. She sees patterns where other people don't. But it doesn't matter to me what it is. A heightened sense of smell, heightened sense of hearing. In one of my favorite instances, in one of my favorite murder series, police series, the policeman in question can hear the final thought of murder victims. He sees them. No one else sees them. And they don't follow him around, and they don't tell him their stories. They are caught forever in their last moment, saying over and over again the last line of their life. And he can hear that. He can't hear anything else. He can't see anything else. But he knows that. And it gives him a tiny edge. It torments him. But it gives him a tiny edge. I like that. I like that much better than the other two standards. One of which is the Nordic crime, ordinary schlep who is sitting in the bathroom stall at the police headquarters, looking down at his pants around his ankles and thinking, it's been a long time since I changed my underwear. Yeah, thanks. I don't really want you solving my murder, if that's okay with you. And the other thing is the Ted Bell kind of superhero, where the Lee Child, something like that, where the crime solver is completely omnicompetent. It can practically, has X-ray vision. So of those three, I infinitely prefer this. Someone who's flawed but has an edge. And sometimes even where the edge is the flaw. But anyway, that was a huge... Let's go on. Let's go back to the pub sheet. A shocking new case unfolding across the country has left her utterly baffled. The victims all appear to have died by accident and have seemingly nothing in common. But this many deaths can't be coincidence, and the killer is somehow one step ahead of every move Dockery makes. How? I'm on board. It won't take me any time at all to read. Did I mention when this is? This is, the pub sheet calls this the long-awaited follow-up to the novel Invisible, which makes me want to get a copy of Invisible. And I don't, this is a case where that'll probably be one of those prestige, taller paperbacks in the bookstores. I probably wouldn't bother a publicist with this. I'd probably just go to the bookstore and buy that. I probably will. Maybe tomorrow or Friday, I will go to Barnes & Noble and just buy a copy of Invisible. Because I don't think I read it. I don't think I got it. I don't think I read it. But this comes out in early June, so it's right around the corner. And then the last of the books that I opened in a frenzy without you is something that you may have seen already if you watch Britta Bowler's channel, and you should. If you don't, you should. One of the pillars of what we refer to as BookTube 2.0. And she has her TBR videos are books about they're videos about books that are intriguing her. They're very much intriguing her. She just did a video like that. I'll leave a link to it if I remember. If I don't, remind me. But I'm sure that all of you watch her anyway. But she just did one. She runs down just a handful of books that she's looking forward to. And one of the ones that got her most glowing, had her, most gleeful, was the new Jeanette Winterson. And I hadn't heard of it until I saw it on her video. But I had strong opinions about Jeanette Winterson, and they were mostly negative. And it's a perfect example of what I talk about on this channel, where over the years that we have all been making BookTube videos, I have watched every one of Britta's videos, and I have come over that time to understand her as a reader and to respect what I know, to really respect what I see, even when I don't agree. It's true that she doesn't do read-alongs with me, buddy reads of any kind, because she hates me, because I smell. But nevertheless, when I watch her channel and she enthuses about something, I think either A, I really need to give that something a try, or B, I really need to re-examine that something if I'm sure of it. And she raved about Jeanette Winterson, just raved about her in this latest video and this latest book. And it was nagging at me even then while I was watching. I was thinking, okay, I must have a Jeanette Winterson here somewhere. If Britta thinks that highly of her, then maybe it's time for me to pull it down off the shelf and give it another read. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? That kind of re-examination happens in all directions. That's one of the thrilling. A friend of mine used to refer to it as a thrilling humiliation. Those are thrilling humiliations where somebody, unbeknownst to them, attacks a long-held opinion of yours about a book or an author and forces you, again, unbeknownst to them, to swallow your pride and go back and see if maybe you were wrong and not the author. So I was already inclined to do that, and then I got the book in question, which is Frankenstein, with Kiss right there in the title. And I want to read you about it, just in case you missed Britta's video. This comes out in October, so this is a long way away. But I am now on a different mental standing with it than I would have been if I had encountered this yesterday. Because of Britta's video, I will now give this an enormously better, more open-minded try. Because of the wonder of bookish friends. So anyway, let's see here. This novel weaves together contemporary lives and literary history into an exploration of transhumanism, artificial intelligence, and queer love. Lake Geneva, 1816. Those of you who know your history will know immediately what's going to happen there. 19-year-old Mary Shelley is inspired to write a story about a scientist who creates a new life form. In Brexit Britain, a young transgender doctor called R.Y., is falling in love with Victor Stein, a celebrated professor leading the public in a debate around AI and carrying out some experiments of his own in a vast underground network of tunnels. So he obviously is also working on creating a new form of life. Meanwhile, Ron Lord, just divorced and living with his mom again, is set to make his fortune launching a new generation of sex dolls for lonely men everywhere. Do me a favor. Don't Google sex dolls. Don't do it. I had to for a piece I wrote 2 years ago, and I can only imagine the advances that have been made since then. That's... Anyway, across the Atlantic, in Phoenix, Arizona, a cryogenics facility houses dozens of bodies of men and women who've been medically and legally dead but are waiting to return to life. Also something I've read a lot about. Cryogenics labs, like they are a complete fraud. Just a complete fraud. It isn't just that perfectly preserved human bodies are waiting in their vats for medical science to come along and come up with a cure. Medical science would have to come up with a way to create life, not just to cure a specific disease. Most of the bodies are decapitated. The bodies are suspended upside down. They've been vivisected. It's just, there's no chance at all. It's just pure bunkery. You're just bilking people at their most vulnerable for huge amounts of money. And there are regular power outages. Anyway, at these places, there are regular power outages. There are two of these major facilities where people pump thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars into them, and they don't even have independent generators. So there have been power outages, sometimes for 12 or 15 hours. You can picture what happens there yourself. You don't need me to draw you a map. But anyway, what will happen when Homo sapiens is no longer the smartest being on the planet? In fiercely intelligent prose, Jeanette Winterson shows us how much closer we are to the future than we realize. Funny and furious, bold and clear-sighted, Frankenstein is a love story about life itself. Okay, and if I had read that yesterday to you, I would now be following it up with a lukewarm rant about Jeanette Winterson. She's never been offensive to me, but she's always been a clever pants. She's always seemed to me to be much more clever than she thinks. And also a lazy writer. When I've read other works of hers, I've often thought, okay, this isn't very well put together. And now I'm thinking that cannot possibly be true. No matter what other things about my personal reaction to her writings might be true, that part cannot possibly be true, that she is a a lazy writer who makes sloppily constructed books. That criticism cannot possibly be true. Or Britta would have jumped on it long before I did, and it would be that's cardinal sin number one in Britta's book. So I think I may have been wrong about this author, and it took another really good reader to open my eyes to that. So that's happened before. I'm perfectly willing to admit that. I was put on the right track about Allie Smith with this latest these quartet of novels of hers. I dismissed the first one. I read it in an afternoon and dismissed it as fluff, basically light literary fluff. And the little old lady who reviews the same novel every week for the Silver Springs Gold set me to right and told me, no, I think there's more going on there than that. You should give it another try. I will do that with this. I won't do it right away because it's October. It's a long time with a lot of summer books that I have to read. But nevertheless, anyway, so those were the books that I opened in my glee before I remembered that you exist. But there are still books we can open together. So we'll do those now. And the packages that are left end with a box. This is the funniest thing in the world because I automatically save the boxes for last. And I did that in this case. And yet while I was doing that, it never crossed my mind to think, well, why do you save the boxes for last? Because you film your videos. That's why. I did it without even... Anyway, let's see what these three are, these final three. We'll see what they are. Okay. All right. This is from Penguin Press. This comes out in early June. I think we've seen this already on this channel. This is yet another Keyhole World War II history. We've seen just a raft of them in 2019. Just a raft, 20 or 30 of them. And quite a few of them have to do with D-Day because it's the 75th anniversary of D-Day. So you're getting a flood of bigger books, larger narrative histories, but also smaller books. Did you know this? What about this? These lost stories of D-Day. And this is one of those. This is by Daniel Guyet and Timothy Smith, and it's Scholars of Mayhem. My Father's Secret War in Nazi-Occupied France. June 6, 2019 marks the 75th anniversary of D-Day, the crucial turning point towards Allied victory in World War II. Behind the Allies' success lay a little-known British Secret Service operation ordered by Winston Churchill in which 4 Allied agents were sent into France the day after D-Day to sabotage German military efforts and organize an army of 10,000 French resistance fighters. This book is the astonishing story of this operation revealed through the personal narrative of one of its agents, Jean-Claude Guyet, the lone American on the secret team. A U.S. citizen of French descent, Jean-Claude his quick intelligence and fluency in idiomatic French was critical to the operation's success. The commando team's feat of irregular warfare and organized mayhem proved vital in keeping German tanks away from Normandy after D-Day. And he kept a written record of his extraordinary wartime experience, but he never revealed the details of the mission to his friends or family until shortly before his death in 2013. Now his son, in collaboration with a former Fortune senior features editor, has used the narrative his father left behind to bring the secret story to life. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, fantastic. So this comes out, on June the 4th, so it's right around the corner. Great. All right, I'm on board. Again, this will not take long to read. So I'm on board. Then we'll do this next one, and then we'll move on to the box. Now, the box is not a complete mystery. The box has a rather garish logo on it, so I kind of know a little bit to expect. Oh, great. Okay, fantastic. We saw this already on this channel. I can't remember if we saw the advanced copy, but I certainly squealed about it in a catalog because I saw it in the University of Chicago Press catalog when I was one of those tedious videos where I was just dragging you through the whole catalog page by page. Now I have the finished copy here, which is out any day. This is by Joy McCann, and it is Wild Sea, A History of the Southern Ocean. That is the cover. Very beautiful cover. The Southern Ocean is a wild and elusive place, an ocean like no other. With its waters lying between the Antarctic continent and the southern coastlines of Australia and New Zealand, South America and South Africa, it is the most remote and inaccessible part of the planetary ocean. And the only part that flows around Earth unimpeded by any landmass. If you can picture that, you get out a globe and see there is a part of Earth that you don't have to touch land at all. It's just, it really does emphasize that this is a water planet. It is notorious among sailors for its tempestuous winds and hazardous fog and ice. Tempestuous winds sounds like like you're on a in a park in London and you're a nanny and you're telling the children, it's too tempestuous for kites flying, children. Please pull that in. Sit down and behave. It's too tempestuous. Tempestuous winds. Just a bit. Yeah. Just a bit. Its southern boundary, defined by the icy continent of Antarctica, is constantly moving in a seasonal dance of freeze and thaw. To the north, its waters meet and mingle with those of the Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific Oceans along a fluid boundary that defies the neat lines of the cartographer. And that description is from the beginning of this book. So begins Joy McCann's Wild Sea, the remarkable story of the world's remote southern or Antarctic Ocean. Unlike the Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, or Arctic Oceans with their long maritime histories, little is known about the Southern Ocean. This book takes readers beyond the familiar heroic narratives of polar exploration to explore the nature of this stormy circumpolar ocean with its place in Western and indigenous histories. Drawing from a vast archive of charts and maps, sea captains' journals, whalers' logbooks, missionaries' correspondence, voyagers' letters, scientific reports, stories, myths, and her own experiences, McCann takes the reader on a voyage of discovery across its surfaces and into its depths, revealing its distinctive physical and biological processes, as well as the people, species, events, and ideas that have shaped our perceptions of it. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, so this and James Patterson are my night's reading. Fantastic. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Wouldn't miss it for the world. All right, so this is the University of Chicago Press. Comes out any day, next Tuesday, probably. I don't know about distribution. I honestly don't. I don't know. I mean, just to put it baldly, I don't know if you'll see this book in your bookstore. I hope you do. I don't know. We ought to have a conversation sometime about what access you have to the books I show you. All of you. We ought to have a long conversation about that so that I could get a really good idea. It's one of the invaluable things about having access to talking with all of you, is that I get to learn all about the bookish realities of the world and all the parts of the world. Right now, do you have a place that would stock this book that's anywhere near you? And would it be prohibitively expensive? What is this going to be? This is going to be $28, $30 American. Where would you get this book? Do you have a bookstore near you that will sell something like this? Is this something that your library would get? And if they would get it, would you have to ask them for it? And if you did, would there be a waiting list? All that sort of stuff. When I show you stuff like this, if you see it and you think, oh, I'm interested, and this is probably going to be great, so you might want to be interested. But for instance, if you've ever sailed in the Southern Ocean, I have for a very, very great amount of time, then of course you'll be interested in this. When you see it on this channel, what would you do? I have a feeling that the answer in most cases would be you would simply go online. But I'd love to know what the physical reality is. I mean, Amazon is there for everybody. Book Depository is there for everybody. But what about the physical reality? Do you have an option where you live right now to go and get a book like this? I'd be fascinated. We'll have that conversation eventually. Eventually, we'll have Steve Con, and then you'll all just gather, and I'll get to ask you in person. But anyway, let's finish up with the box. And the reason why I'm squealing, and the reason why the box is not a mystery, is because it has a great logo right on it. It has Harlequin right on it. So we already know part of what this is going to be. We know this is going to be a romance, for instance. It feels very light, so I'm guessing it's going to be one mass-market paperback that for some reason is just in a box instead of tucked in an envelope. Let's see. Okay, I am correct. It is one mass-market paperback. Is it one that I already have? Seems familiar, but I never know. Because I could just have requested it, and that might be why it's familiar. This is a safe haven novel. Maybe the reason it seems familiar to me is because I have another safe haven novel. In fact, do I? I think I do. I think I have another safe haven novel. It might even be this one. We might have seen this one already, and I just might not be finding it on my romance shelf. I'm looking off camera here because my romance shelf is right here, and I'm not seeing. But anyway, this is Lee Tobin McLean. This is Low Country Dreams, and it is a safe haven novel. One of those lovely location cover photos they're a minor vogue in romance novels. I'm perfectly okay with it. I think they're lovely. The only paperwork that came in the box was an invoice. But I can still read this to you. What do you got here? Yasmin Tanner has devoted her life to making other people's dreams come true. But between running Safe Haven's Women's Center and caring for her brother, the long days and lonely nights are catching up with her until Officer Liam O'Dwyer knocks on her door. She had good reason for breaking Liam's heart all those years ago, but that hasn't made sharing their small town any easier. She's missed him. That's painfully clear to her now. But that's not the only secret she's keeping from him. Ever since Yasmin left, Liam has kept his head down and his chin up. Not physically possible, but okay. But when a woman from Yasmin's Women's Center goes missing, leaving her teenage son alone, it hits home for Liam. He'll do whatever it takes to reunite this family, even work closely with the one woman he can't forget. This is Low Country Dreams, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be obsessive about this, but I feel, okay, the Safe Haven novels, there's only one other. Low Country Hero is the one other Safe Haven novel. I feel certain that I have that, or that at least it showed up on this channel. I will try and check, or maybe you can check and let me know. But one way or another, I love these location romances. I just love them. I have a whole bunch of they're mostly contemporary things, but where there's a harbor or there's a bed and breakfast or something, or a restaurant or something like that forms the linchpin. The place forms a linchpin for the stories. I love it. I love how the authors exploit that to create the temporary drama that you need to power a story, but while simultaneously creating a sense of a warm, comfy blanket, an easy chair out on the porch. That kind of sense for these novels, which is, it's easily mockable. Plenty of people look down on romance novels and mock that very thing, but once again, I say, don't mock it until you've been able to do it yourself and can legitimately call it easy. It's not easy to create that feeling. That warm blanket feeling, that sense of coming home. That's not an easy thing to do. It looks easy, but lots of difficult things look easy. And I appreciate it when these authors can do this really well. I remember, I know that I read Low Country Hero. I know that I did, and I know that I liked it. It's bothering me because I'm not seeing it right at the moment, but that's okay. I'll go looking for it. So there you go. It's kind of a half and half, not quite half, but it was a slightly interrupted mail haul. Let's put it that way. So we have Wild Sea, a natural and human history of the Southern Ocean. We have Scholars of Mayhem, great title, about a tiny cadre of soldiers who apparently had a huge task on their shoulders in the immediate wake of D-Day. Then we have Unsolved, a follow-up to Invisible. I don't get the impression from the bit I read and from the pub sheet that you really need to read Invisible first. I will probably get it anyway, but I'm eager to read. I'll probably read this book before I go and get Invisible. Then we have the European Seaborne Empires, a naked hardcover from Yale that sounds really good. I'm not 100% sure about it. Then My Virtuous Sister by Nick Fowler. Which I don't quite know why I singled out the UK here. I guess my point with Nick Fowler is that this book very much gives me the impression that I'm coming in late to a story of some kind. So that's on me. I will do my due diligence. I'll make sure I know about this before I write about it. If I write about it, certainly I won't do any of that before I read it. I don't need to know any of that before I read it. I'll consume it immediately. And then Jeanette Winterson, who I will be reading with fresh eyes because of Britta. This is Frankenstein, her new novel, Frankenstein. And finally, Low Country Dreams, the next Safe Haven novel from Lee Tobin McLean. So there you go. That's better late than never mail haul, and I'll wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.